Welcome back to This is VANCOLOUR. Throughout this current federal election, Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has promised tougher sentencing for mass murderers, fentanyl kingpins, and dangerous repeat offenders. But will such policies actually prevent crime? Here to discuss, a couple of familiar faces, a motivational speaker and advocate for harm reduction and recovery with lived experience, Guy Felicella, and This is VANCOLOUR's resident legal counsel representing Acumen Law, Kyla Lee. Kyla, Guy, thanks so much for being here tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so Kyla, I keep hearing this phrase, repeat offenders, people who go out and constantly commit crimes and kind of cycle through the justice system. What is so bad about having harsh sentencing that those repeat offenders, people prone to committing violent crimes, are kept away from the public for a long period of time?
And there's two major problems with it. The first is it's inherently discriminatory. The people that we think about as repeat offenders are people who are experiencing homelessness or underhoused, people who have mental health and addiction issues. They're not people who are committing crimes because they're just bad people motivated to cause harm. Crime comes from unmet needs, and that's what's happening here.
But in terms of public safety, isn't there a fair argument to say the public also deserves the right to be free in public?
Absolutely, the public deserves the right to be free in public, but that applies to everybody, including people who are experiencing all of those things that lead to crime. And that's why it's a problem to just punish people for committing crimes rather than look at the root causes of those crimes and meet those needs to prevent it from happening in the first place.
Guy, on a street level, if you hear about harsher sentences now being, say, implemented by the government, do you think that that'll actually prevent crime on the streets? Do you think it'll prevent criminals from doing crime?
No, I don't. Number one, people don't go and do a crime thinking of the sentencing they're going to receive. And it doesn't deter them, but they also don't think they're going to get caught. And then there's two things, just what Kyla was saying as well. It's just the fact that opportunity is one way and also desperation is another way why people commit crimes.
Do you think that applies also for drug dealers? Like, let's say, Pierre Poilievre has been talking about putting fentanyl kingpins behind bars for life. Do you think that'll actually encourage them to not drug deal?
No.
No?
I mean, they're going to do what they're going to do. I mean, they already get pretty harsh sentences for drug dealing, especially on an extreme level. So, but that doesn't deter them. But also, too, with what he's saying, as well as the 40 milligrams, that would mean that he would basically be targeting also people who are struggling with addiction, because any transaction hand to hand would be considered trafficking.
So really what I'm hearing is that these sentencing proposals don't factor into whether or not someone commits a crime.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Okay. Is it just something that maybe caters to the public then as a sense of safety or security that, okay, bad guys will be punished?
Yeah, I think so. I think when they're saying that the public likes to hear these things, that they're going, oh, we're going to solve these issues, but it's not the solution.
What is the solution then, from your perspective?
Well, I think the solution for punishing people is you have to look at prison reform, but also, again, we have to look at why are people committing these crimes, usually poverty, trauma and underlying issues that aren't dealt with. So wouldn't it make sense to actually address the social factors instead of continuing to punish people?
Kyla, are there any constitutional limits for how harsh punishments can be?
Oh, absolutely. The Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms protects people against cruel and unusual punishment. And there's also your right to life, liberty, and security of the person. So imprisoning people for extended periods of time has often been found to be cruel and unusual punishment, disproportionate to the offense and the circumstances of the offender.
Can't we just override the Constitution if the will of the people wants that? Like, if, let's say, Canadians do want harsher sentences for certain crimes, can't we just pass that?
I mean, the government could use the notwithstanding clause, as Pierre Poilievre is threatening to do, to override the Constitution. That would have to be reviewed within 5 years. But even if that was done, I think after 5 years, it would be eminently clear that it's not changing anything. And dealing with crime by increasing punishments is just creating a system of whack-a-mole.
So how should policymakers and politicians talk about crime then?
I think that they should talk about ways to address the root causes of crime. And for all the money you would spend imprisoning people for life or imprisoning people for life after their third offense, things like that, you could spend that money on providing housing, providing healthcare, providing psychological supports, providing rehabilitation services, and you would save money in the end.
Are there any examples where this has been done, or are we just talking about a utopia here?
I think there are probably no examples of what I envision, but there are some European countries that have gone sort of the treatment route and addressing these issues, and they have had positive results.
Yeah.
Guy, from your perspective, how should we be talking about punishment or crime sentencing?
Well, I mean, again, prison reform, and remember, prison isn't about, it's not about rehabilitation, it's about incarceration and punishment. And so we see these acts that are committed in our society, and yeah, sure, some may be really egregious, but then we don't see what happens to people in prison. It's a very toxic environment, and one of where a lot of people are just trying to survive. And then when they're released from prison, there's no resources or support for them back in the community. And so essentially we drop people off at a bus stop with a welfare check, homeless, and where do you think they're going to go?
Right. So doesn't that lend itself to the argument that maybe we should provide people who are convicted of crimes with the options of treatment versus prison, or perhaps even mandate treatment to them?
Well, we do have already significant diversion from the criminal justice system, but that's also up to the judge, the Crown, the defense, and the client. That I agree with. If somebody gets an option to go do something else, great, but you can't force somebody to go into treatment.
Why not?
Well, because listen, I mean, people say that, no, I'd rather go to prison. I'll tell you, it can be very aggressive when they walk into a treatment facility and then they'll wind back into prison. And so essentially what we're doing is actually we're probably creating crime instead of preventing it.
Really?
Yeah.
So if it's forced upon them, they're more likely to lash out, I guess.
Well, yeah, and then they will go back to prison. I mean, so essentially, I don't think any judge would actually do it anyway. So regardless of what happens, just saying things and actually doing things are two different things.
Now, for both of you really quickly, if you are, let's say, a victim of crime or a family or friend of someone who's a victim of crime, I mean, isn't there something where you do want to see that person punished? Like, what is wrong with wanting someone to be punished for an aggravated assault or murder or something that is violent as a member of the public? Like, I kind of understand that. I sympathize with that argument of someone who does something bad should receive a harsh punishment.
People who do bad things should receive a fit punishment tailored to their circumstances and the circumstances of the offense. And if you want more as a victim of crime, you have options. You can file a civil suit. You can seek compensation through the Victim Compensation Fund in BC. There are ways for you to make yourself whole that don't involve dropping the hammer on people who don't need to have more roadblocks in their lives.
Guy, final word?
What she said.
You're just deferring to the lawyer. I love it. Both of you, thank you so much for your time tonight. I really do appreciate it.
Thanks for having us.
Folks, that was motivational speaker Guy Felicella and criminal defense lawyer Kyla Lee. Now, after some business, elbows up. Canadians have been urged to change their travel plans and not vacation in the United States, but are we actually doing that? Claire Newell will bring it home up next.